All right, so vibrant light to you all. We're going to do an Akashic breakdown on the quartz itself. Now, this is a master record keeper that my mother was gifted, I think, 15 years ago. And she was meant to gift this crystal to me when I became in tune with crystal consciousness. So this has been a master key for me to unlocking and rewriting core belief systems around what's possible, around accessing information from the quartz itself, as the quartz is part of the silica living library of this planet, and all of the technology, right, that we use is based off of silica microchips, which allows for information to be shared at the speed of light through atmospheric energy. But we can crack the codes of the matrix, and we can unlock how we access the crystal Akashic records. And we do this through it's part of our organic earthright to be able to access this level of technology through the silica itself. And what I'm looking at right here is a record keeper crystal. And certain crystals, not all crystals, have the record keeper code vibration on their top termination. But when you do find a record keeper, it is deeply encoded with a resonant seed vibration. And it can be almost like a teacher to other crystals, right? Because crystals hold a sympathetic resonant vibration. And through electron excitation and phase locking, they can actually share information. They can go into an entangled state where basically the electrons can harmonize with surrounding silica, and they can actually start to link up and phase lock and share information. And so the same way that crystals share information is the same way that we can access the information from the crystal as well. And so I've slowly analyzed and broken down quantum physics and science and the full process of alchemy of how the crystal forms, and also how we, as quantum living supercomputers, can actually access the Akashic records through the silica and through diamond NV resonance. So the quartz itself holds a resonant vibration which allows access to the Akashic records, and this happens through vibration and through geometry. And the termination of the crystal itself actually creates the most natural harmonious angle that a quartz will terminate at is a 51-degree angle, and that's the exact angle that the Great Pyramids have been created at. And it's almost like the architect of the gods and understood this, or whoever created the Great Pyramids, whether they were vibrated into effect through cymatics and through crystalline resonance, or they were created through architectural design. Well, whoever created the actual geometry of the pyramids understood this angle, right? And they understood how important this was for harnessing ether energy from source. Same way that, Antiquitech is creating atmospheric energy from, being over 30 meters in the air to then access that electric energy at that atmospheric height. The same way that the angle of the quartz itself pulls in ether energy. So the angle itself is actually a very important angle for harnessing energy. And so the quartz itself is a natural device for accessing and harnessing this energy. Now, when we get into the full process of what the crystal actually is, right, it's hundreds of thousands of years worth of light and vibration and elemental energy alchemizing into this sacred crystalline form. And we look at it as a sacred process of intelligence, like photonic light solidifying into crystalline form, so this is like light and intelligence crystallized. And we can look at the full process of how photonic light from the sun actually comes into our atmosphere, and in the outer rings of the atmosphere, that photonic light interacts with the N14, nitrogen 14, in the outer rings of the atmosphere. And that N14 goes through an alchemical process transforming that light into C14, the carbon 14. And that carbon 14 actually goes through a process down to the lower realms of our atmosphere, interacting with the oxygen, and transforms into CO2, carbon dioxide, which the carbon dioxide then interacts with the plants. The plants transform it into chlorophyll, and we actually ingest it as well in a process as we breathe in the oxygen, right? And then the oxygen is also rich with C14, very, very small microparticulates of it, but that's how we ingest it, through small breaths in the oxygen and through the plants. We ingest the C14. So this is a way that we take in photonic light as matter. And this is another process of how the crystal actually forms. But deep in the Earth's core, right, there's these sacred pockets where all kinds of thermal conductive activities happening, and water is being shifted around through pressure and movement in the Earth, and it's going through basically a filtration process. And as that water is filtering through the Earth, it's actually gathering different elements and minerals along the way. And as that water that's mineral rich finally reaches, a certain location in the Earth's core, right, where there's a pocket that's precise and perfect where the crystal can form, we have a sacred alchemical process called elemental precipitation. And it's the same exact process of, how, rain droplets or snowflakes will form in the atmosphere, right, from temperature changing, right? We have precipitation that occurs. It's where something will solidify from like a gas or a vapor into a solid, right? And so this actually is turning into a solid crystal from a liquid or a gas-like, substance in the Earth. And so this process called mineral precipitation, also crystal nucleation, because through that process, as the mineral-rich water is evaporating, while it evaporates, some call it a calcification process, but the actual terminology is crystal nucleation, and that's where the actual seed of the nucleus of the crystal finds the exact precise environment to basically collapse into our reality. It almost is like the moment of singularity where everything happens precisely at one moment, right? Where we have that mineral precipitation occurring and the crystal nucleation, which is the seeding of the nucleus of the crystal. And from that moment, right, the photonic light vibration also coming in, finally going through the atmosphere, and as that light reaches the Earth's surface, it actually starts to vibrate into the Earth's core as phononic, packets of crystalline energy and intelligence. And those phonons are what finally reach that exact alchemical moment where all of this magic happens, and that elemental precipitation and the phononic light vibration echoing and amplified through the Earth's core, all of this vibration actually vibrates in an exact precise moment where the crystal nucleation, is calling in through almost like cymatics, the Earth's Akashic cymatic vibrations to crystallize the very first lattice of the crystal structure itself. And so we have such an advanced process, and then we have, hundreds of thousands of years of those moments literally solidifying. And it's like the light, as photonic light comes down through the atmosphere and interacts with all the living beings, gathering conscious information for that exact moment to solidify the Akashic vibration of consciousness into the crystal itself. As every single lattice that we witness, every single little code that you see on the crystal, right? These little tiny triangles that represent the growth patterns and the lattice of the crystal structure. But every lattice, we now know, is a collaboration of the elemental exchange of consciousness of this planet, Mother Earth, all the elements, right? And then also we see the photonic light, right, as intelligence coming from central sun. And all of these roles of alchemy come into one singular sacred moment as they crystallize and create each lattice of this crystal. And so right here we're witnessing the Akashic code, the Akashic vibration of the silica itself, represented in a vibrational form. But this is hundreds of thousands of years of this alchemical process of intelligence slowly crystallizing. And so we see not only the record keepers on the top termination, but we also see this beautiful window pointing towards the left. And in the metaphysical realm, they believe that that is a window into the past, into the Akashic documentation of the past. And if it's directly centered, it's into the soul's vibration as of now. And if it's to the right, it's into the future. So the crystal, has a way of accessing multi-dimensional timelines and bending the limitations that we've put into this dimension. Time itself becomes irrelevant when you access the quantum field, right? We go into a state of superimposed entanglement with infinite possibilities, infinite algorithmic checks coming back with the most powerful and guided response accessible from the quantum field. So the crystal itself is actually a sacred tool. And when we, this is something I wanted to get really deep into this, because the record keepers are what awakened me and guided me on my path involving this metaphysical journey as a metaphysical teacher, and slowly learning how to translate the information from the crystal itself. And now I have a deeper understanding of how this full process actually happens, and to have a foundation of quantum physics and science to basically validate the energies that we feel when we work with crystals. That is the magic. So I hope you enjoyed this master teachings of crystals and the record keeper vibrations. If you enjoy my work, please follow me on YouTube at AncientAzatlan. That's AncientAzatlan. Or you can find me on Instagram, AncientAzatlan, or on TikTok, AncientAzatlan, or my other page dedicated to crystals is Stargate Keys, and that's on TikTok and Instagram, and I'll probably start a YouTube page as well. But in the divine light, if you like this information, please share, like, and subscribe. I'll be also doing master classes. You can follow on my website at AncientAzatlan.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter. I'm writing a book that's about to be published and ready. You can pre-order it. We'll have them out released in spring of 2026, but I'll be going deep into the ancient artifacts from Ojuelos de Jalisco, as well as quantum physics and quantum science behind crystalline resonance. So I hope you enjoy. In the divine light, have a blessed day.